Hello and welcome everybody to another film. I need to talk to you this week about textiles. Yeah, it's all going wrong. I unthreaded it, what a tip. Now I don't mean fashion textiles, I don't mean getting a pattern, making something beautiful. I can't do that, I don't even try. I mean textiles that is experimental, that is political, that makes a mess, that is a bit more out there, art that pushes the boundaries a little bit more, experimenting with colour and with thread and with texture. That's the kind of textiles that I like to do. I have the greatest respect for the people who can take a pattern and take a piece of fabric and turning it into something absolutely amazing. But as those of you who watch my channel will know, I don't do measuring and planning, and I like to just get together all the stuff I've got and have a play and make a mess and do my own thing. So today I'm going to show you some basic techniques for turning a textile piece into art rather than functional textiles. I'm going to show you the work of some professional textile artists along the way so you can see what can really be done. I'm going to show you a few techniques that you can start with your sewing machine to get into textile art. A couple of weeks ago you saw me make a baby Ludo from Labyrinth. Go and find that if you haven't seen it. Right, stop playing with puppets and become something useful now. And in that video I had to make a little furry suit for the Ludo, and that was quite a pressure for me because I'm not used to making things with textiles that need to be functional. That's the word I'm looking for. That need to be functional. I'm more used to playing with a sewing machine as if it were a paintbrush or a pencil. But what I'm going to end up with today is a little sampler. Do you know how in Victorian times girls would be asked to make an embroidery sampler with the alphabet and all the numbers? Well, this is going to be a experimental technique sampler, if you will. Rocket. Yes. So today is going to be about making a sampler that shows you lots of different techniques, things you can do with the machine, with hand sewing, with the heat gun, all sorts of strange things. And I will show you some of the applications of those techniques later on. So as always, I don't really have a plan because I don't do plans. I've got lots of fabric scraps and I've laid out a few on the table in a kind of way that I kind of like the look of, and I'm going to pin them together and then sew it all together and then start working with different techniques over the top to create an art piece. At the moment I'm not entirely sure where this is going.
Ana Teresa Barbosa is a Peruvian artist whose hand-stitched work spills out from the framed space and onto the walls. She implies that the artwork has a life beyond what she has done, leaving threads trailing and unfinished, as if the work has a life of its own. She makes a point about self-esteem, using photography and textiles to make work about breaking out of the confines of one's own skin.
Okay, so now I'm going to do some slashing. I'm going to run the lines of sewing all the way down, lots of parallel lines all the way across, and then slash through it so that you can see the grey through. I'm going to carry on with this pink thread because I think that'll add a bit of contrast. I don't want to hide the sewing in this piece, it's a feature of it. I got the wrong foot on. It's not used to having an embroidery foot when you're doing straight lines. Just be silly. Start again. Right. So now you can see I've sewn lots of lines all the way across this piece. So my next job is to cut in between all the pieces. As I go along, it'll reveal the grey. So now you can see through to all the grey bits, and you can start to distress this a little bit, make it more interesting. And it also makes the greys pop out a little bit. So there's lots of extra thread here. Let's get rid of this. See, some of it I'm going to leave because I quite like the kind of distressed look that you get. I'm going to be finding little green bits of thread for days.
Nika Schroeder is from Berlin. She states that her work is about drawing without a pen. She depicts life around her with paint and machine embroidery and uses thread outside of the canvas to imply a life beyond it. Her most recent work has really made a feature of the nature of the thread itself, emphasising colour in works that change depending on the viewpoint of the audience.
I'm going to do a little bit of machine embroidery on this piece because I don't want to just sew it down the sides. I'm going to follow the pattern. I'm going to put my embroidery foot on rather than my straight foot. Use the needle as a drawing tool to follow the pattern of the fabric. So this is my favourite part of working with art textiles, is getting to draw with thread. It's quite cool. So when you're using an embroidery foot, you need to pull things quite tight. So I have an embroidery hoop here. So one of the things I do quite a lot when I'm sewing is to do free embroidery, using your needle as a pen. So essentially the pen's staying still, but you're moving the paper around. The way to practice this before you get too involved is to take a piece of fabric that has a pattern on already and try and work around the patterns on it, try and follow. That way you just get used to moving the paper rather than the pencil around, and it's a good starting point. So I will quite often find old bits of fabric and do this just for practice.
Nava Lubelski's work is about value. A sewer's work often involves repair, and she sees worth in these defects and damages, celebrating them, elevating the accident of a spillage on a tablecloth and making it beautiful, assigning it value through the skill of embroidery. She highlights mending and recycling, contrasting the accidental with the meticulous. Lynn Skordal, similarly to Barbosa, uses photographs and embroidery. She takes old photographs and gives them new life, adding a touch of surrealism to them. she wishes to provoke a reaction with her mixed media work, telling a story and making people think.
So the next thing I'm going to show you is called a Suffolk puff. It's also known as a yo-yo in some circles, but I've always known it as a Suffolk puff. So you take a circle of fabric. All you need to do is a running stitch all the way around the edge of the circle. And the next part is to just pull that gradually quite tight.
Kirsty Whitlock is a British artist that recycles objects she finds and often makes a political point in her work. She stitches into found things to highlight our throwaway consumer culture. She often uses text in her work, highlighting newspaper headlines to make her point.
So now I have put everything together in the sampler. So all the machine embroidery, the slashing work, the burning that I did, the Suffolk puffs, everything. And here it is at the moment. Okay, so nowhere near finished right now. Alright, but I've been able to put all the things together into into one big piece. I'm going to machine it all down now and then work into this piece as it stands all together with some machine embroidery. So I kind of pull it all together. Like I said at the beginning, it's just a sampler. It's not really a piece of work for display. It's just kind of like a sketchbook of different techniques. I'm going to go now and put it all together with the sewing machine.
This is the final outcome of my sketchbook sampler using different creative techniques for textiles. Why don't you try one yourself? No pressure, just play around with fabrics and ideas until you find something interesting. Here are some of the other pieces I've done to give you some ideas. I like playing with machine embroidery the best and have started doing portraits this way. I keep practicing and I'm starting to get better with each one I do. What will you try? Get into that fabric scraps box and see what you can find. Come over to the Arty Mouse Art Tutorial group on Facebook for some more tips and a safe space to show and discuss your work. You can even book a personal tutorial with me if you like. Don't forget to sign up below for my Secret Squirrel weekly art tips email and some ideas for more creative stuff. As always, subscribe here on YouTube to pick up my weekly films, and come over to Instagram at ArtyMouse76 for much more silliness and shenanigans. See you there, tribe.